Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about Japan because I've been seeing some very interesting and a little bit disturbing things in the chart that I work with for Japan. Now, I think I've told you many times before, but I used to have a Japanese website. I had it for over 7 years where I would make predictions for the country every single month. And actually, the month prior to March of 2011, I did predict the massive earthquake and tsunami. And a lot of my people from the website were in great appreciation and thanked me because it gave them time to change their plans, which they did. So what I'm seeing for Japan, I'm not quite sure if it's an earthquake or if it's an attack, but one way or another, it is something that is about to happen there. And so before I proceed, I want to remind everyone to sign up for my free newsletter. Go to galacticcenter.org and you will get all of my predictions delivered every week to your email. Now, on top of that, while you're at my website, check out my Patreon page. If you want to be part of a spiritual community and talk to me frequently, every week, personally, then join. And as a matter of fact, one of my people from Patreon, Sing Tao, suggested that I do this reading for Japan and for the Prime Minister, which I have his chart and I have Japan's chart, the one I used all those years. Now, another thing is I am going to start my galactic planner. And this is where it takes your personal birth chart and gives you predictions every day. Sign up for that. Go to galacticplanner.com and you will get the first month free, absolutely free. Try it out, see if you like it. All right, so go there. One last thing. If you want to study with me, become my student. I have semester 1 beginning this summer, so go to universityofvedicastrology.com. All right, so now I want to put up the chart that I use for Japan, and here it is. And right below it, I want to put their new Prime Minister, who is Fumio Kishida. And I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I don't speak Japanese, but he is the Prime Minister, and I see a lot of things that are always hitting the leaders' charts as well as the birth charts for the country. Now, going to his chart, we don't have his birth time. So I always just put 12 noon to see where the moon is, and the moon is in Leo the entire day, so we can look at the moon as the ascendant. But regardless, just looking at where all the planets are in terms of where the transiting planets are gives us great information. And he had an assassination attempt. And it was in April of 2023. And I pulled up all the transits to see what was happening for him at that time. And it was astounding. I mean, it's just, you can see astrology doing its work. Because for one thing, Saturn on that day was about 9 degrees of Aquarius. And if you look at his birth chart, he has got, well, we don't know the exact degree of the moon, but it is somewhere around 9 degrees of Leo. And then we have his Venus at 10 degrees of Leo. So we have exactly Saturn aspecting the moon and specifically Venus, which from the moon, if we're looking at the moon as the ascendant, it rules the 10th house of his career. And this is exactly what this was all about. Now, the thing that bothers me the most is that, well, looking on that particular day, Rahu and Ketu were active, and so was Uranus. So Uranus was at 3 degrees of Aries, within a degree, less than a degree, of his Ketu, which is losses, extreme losses. And if we look from the moon, then this is going to be in the 9th house, which can deal with leadership, law, and all of those type of things. But regardless, we have got some major things that were happening. And especially if you will look at where the nodes were on that day, I mean, Ketu was 9 degrees, which is on his ascendant. Ketu is losses. So we can see that that day was extremely dangerous. And believe it or not, I said around that time that a leader would be assassinated or there'd be an assassination attempt. Thank goodness it was just an attempt. And it did happen because I was looking at the fact that Rahu was conjunct the sun that day. And Rahu's sun meaning leadership, Rahu being extremes and events such as an assassination attempt. But regardless, let's get to business now and talk about what the future is for Japan. Because I'm very concerned where the Mars and Uranus conjunction are going. July 15th will be when Mars and Uranus will be exactly conjunct at 2 degrees of Taurus. Now, this is an incredibly dangerous degree. It is on the fixed star Algol. And Algol is the most demonic. The fact that both Uranus and Mars are coming together on this star is frightening. And another thing is that I went back and looked at even the bombing of Pearl Harbor, where the Japanese attacked the United States there in Hawaii. We have the same thing going on that is happening in the heavens right now. So this leads to a whole nother thing about the United States, which I am going to get to. But on that day of December 7th, 1941, Saturn was 0 degrees of Taurus, Uranus was 4 degrees of Taurus, and Jupiter was in Taurus too. So the thing that bothers me the most is that Uranus, which takes 84 years to go through the zodiac, has returned to where it was with the bombing of Pearl Harbor. So this is really tough. We have got some serious things coming for Japan because of this. But let me just point out that this conjunction of Mars-Uranus around 2 degrees of Taurus will be squaring Mars in the Prime Minister's chart, Kashida. So that's very difficult. It tells me that he is going through a rough time, a very rough time. And most importantly, when I am looking at what's happening globally in the world in terms of world war and what's to come, I've been watching and tracking Mars, because Mars is the planet of war. And what concerns me deeply is the fact that Mars, around December 7th, will station to go retrograde. And when it does, it will be around 11-12 degrees of Cancer. Now, Mars does terrible in Cancer. It's its debilitation sign. So for Mars to station to go retrograde, when a planet goes retrograde, it becomes like 100 times more powerful. So I've been charting across all of the countries' charts to see if any of the countries have degrees or planets or the world leaders around 10 to 12 degrees of Cancer. And I have found many. So I'm thinking that there is something very serious that is about to happen between July through the end of this year. But while Mars is with Uranus, or Mars is simply in Taurus, where we have so many fixed stars in the Pleiades. We have got Aldebaran, opposed Antares, star of war. Aldebaran is the red eye of the bull. So there is a lot, and it sits around 16 degrees of Taurus. So the whole time that Mars is in Taurus, look out, there will be danger around the world. And that will be specifically July 12th through August 26th. Be aware. But then when we have Mars go retrograde around December 7th, that's where I think the whole world is pulled in. But there is something that might happen even before the elections. And heaven knows, wouldn't a lot of people love for those elections to be postponed? So we're going to see about this. But yes, I'm specifically, what I want to point out for Japan currently right now is the month of July. And July 15th is when that conjunction is exact. And we also have Saturn. Saturn is doing a number on the chart for Japan. Now I have the chart of Japan up here as well. And when you look at that chart, note that around November 15th, Saturn will station. And Saturn will station around 19 degrees of Aquarius. And if you will look at the chart for Japan, yes, it will be, Saturn will be squaring right at the midpoint of Japan's Rahu and Ketu at 19 degrees, where Rahu sits Taurus and Ketu sits at 19 degrees of Scorpio. And Saturn's full 10th aspect to Ketu is very detrimental. Now, actually, October 19th will be the time that Saturn will be aspecting the exact degree of the nodes. So, and then again, while it stations in November, so October through November, there is great, serious problems for Japan, whether it's earthquakes or attacks. It could be an attack. One way or another, watch. This will be a crisis. And another thing I found quite interesting, just looking at the chart for Japan, their Saturn sits at 15 degrees of Cancer. And the Mars, when it stations to go retrograde, will be at 12 degrees of Cancer. But what is fascinating for the United States chart, Rahu sits in the United States chart at 15 degrees of Cancer. And the reason why I'm saying that is if you do a chart comparison with the US and Japan, my God, Rahu sits on their Saturn, and their Saturn sits on Rahu in the USA chart. So there's karma between, big karma, between Japan and the US. I know you're not looking at the US chart, but let's go back to just looking at Japan, because what I'm seeing for Japan is natal Mars, and I noted that that natal Mars in Scorpio was triggered at the time that that earthquake happened in 2011. And what is going to happen in July is that Mars is going to oppose natal Mars where Uranus is. And typically, Uranus is the planet of earthquakes because it deals with sudden, unexpected events. So this could be another massive earthquake. Heaven knows Japan is prepared for that because it is so earthquake bound. I mean, they get more earthquakes, it seems. They're in, not Argentina, but Chile. Chile has ridiculous amounts, and New Zealand, that whole region really of the Pacific, Japan, New Zealand, and all those islands in between, as well as Chile, that is earthquake, you know, battleground. That is where they have to deal with this. So, as I've been saying, there is the probability that a big earthquake is also going to hit California. I've been saying this for a long time. I think it's July or August. July or August. It looks like it's coming. I think around mid-July is the strongest. But for some reason, these aspects will linger for about a month, that these outer planets that move so slow will be there. And sometimes events don't happen when the aspects are exact. But right around that time, that is when it's in the orb and things are going to happen. So yes, I think there is going to be an earthquake, but I also see problems with Japan, with China. That's where I'm seeing some major hits, because when I pull up the chart for China and for Xi Jinping, the charts align in a very negative way. Just take my word for it. I'll do another reading for all of these countries that I think are going to be involved in war. Because there's so much and so many charts for me to look at, you're going to have to look at these with me so that you will be ready and prepared. We are looking for some turbulent times. I mean, we're looking at earthquakes, we are looking at wars, we are looking at violence, we're looking at anger, and we are looking at a major split. The whole time that Uranus is in Taurus, look out. I actually went back to World War II to find out what started World War II. And even though Uranus was not, World War II actually started, the date I came up with was September 1st, 1939. But the United States entered the war by the time that they were bombed with Pearl Harbor. And that was when Uranus was in Taurus. So Uranus just entered into Taurus, and this is huge for World War, especially with the United States being involved, because that is when the United States became involved with World War II, when Uranus was in Taurus. That was the last time it was there, 84 years ago. Remember, Uranus takes 84 years to go through all 12 signs of the zodiac, and it has just returned to Taurus, where the last time it was when the U.S. got involved with World War II because of the bombing of Pearl Harbor. That was it. And it was, let's see, Pearl Harbor happened December 7th, 1941. And if you will look, Uranus was at 4 degrees of Taurus, and Jupiter was at 23 degrees of Taurus. I mean, the writing is on the wall. Astrology is cycles. When are people going to understand that these cycles are what we need to be able to clearly see what we need to see, either to prevent things, and so many times when we can't prevent things, to prepare for things? So vitally important. So just to sum it all up, let me just say, looking at the chart for Japan, Japan has Rahu and natal Uranus in Taurus, but Mars in Scorpio at 4 degrees. And actually, when you think about it, well, you know what? I'm going to show you Pearl Harbor's chart. So let's put up Pearl Harbor. I want you to see what I'm talking about. So looking at when the Japanese attacked the U.S., and I'm not saying that the Japanese are going to attack the U.S., but what I am saying is this was a time when Japan was at war and violence was going on. And when I put up this chart for Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941, notice where Uranus and Jupiter are. That is where they're going to be together again in Taurus. And notice this. This is very interesting. If you will look at Uranus at 4 degrees of Taurus, notice in Japan's chart where Mars is. 4 degrees of Scorpio. So Uranus is aspecting their natal Mars on the day that they attacked Pearl Harbor. And it pretty much put the nail in the coffin for them, because right after, you know what happened. There was, because of this, the bombing of Hiroshima. So all of that came to pass because of this aspect. So you see, Mars and Uranus together are very, very dangerous. Mars is war and Uranus is sudden, unexpected events. And don't kid yourself, Uranus, called the Great Awakener, deals with sudden, dangerous events. I've seen it too many times as an astrologer. And as a matter of fact, when Saturn's thrown into the mix, it's really dangerous. And Saturn is aspecting, when it stations, to go direct, November 15th. But in October, it's going to be slowing down, and it is going to be exactly at the midpoint of Rahu and Ketu. Saturn's karma and Rahu and Ketu are destiny. So Japan is in major trouble, and they need to watch all of their borders. They need to watch their enemies, and they need to be prepared for explosive, unexpected events, earthquakes, and attacks. So this is what I see in the stars for Japan. Please, if you live in Japan, please be aware and do prayers for protection. And I know if you are connected divinely with your spirit, you will be protected. That is a given. But there is a lot that's ahead. I don't know why Japan has such a karmic chart, but it does. For some reason, I don't know, but and it's tied in with other countries. So with that, I think I'll close. And I want you to be aware and know that all of this is happening for a divine reason. It always does. Everything happens for a reason, and everything is happening, believe it or not, hard to believe, for the highest good of our world. People in the world have to wake up, and sometimes these are the only way that people will wake up. So with that, thank you for listening. Remember, if you want to learn more about me, if you would like a reading, or if you would like to join my university, go to my website, which is galacticcenter.org. And if you want to join my school, go to universityofvedicastrology.com. Thank you.